Good day traders, this is Stefanos on behalf of Tixee, and in today's video we'll be giving an outlook of the market for the week of the 28th of February until the 4th of March. As always, before we get started, please know that all of the ideas discussed in this webinar are my own opinions and do not make up for any form of investment or trading advice, neither any recommendations to buy or sell. You should always do your own research and due diligence before buying or selling any securities, financial products, or instruments, and whether you use any kind of trading strategies. Any information that relates to past performance is not indicative of future results. As we mentioned in the previous look back video, the week ahead will again be one to watch out for as far as stocks and the current Q4 earnings season. Not only that, but we also have the ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine, with the full-scale invasion being announced last week on Tuesday, as most of you are probably also aware. With regards to stocks, last week we had Alibaba, Beyond Meat, and Moderna reporting their numbers, and some of the big names for this week that we're going to be covering is going to be Salesforce, Costco, and Baidu. Now, kicking things off, we're going to be looking first at Salesforce. I'll just switch the chart to the daily time frame. And the company is going to be reporting their figures on Tuesday after the markets close. Now, again, when this is the case and we have companies reporting their numbers after the market close, the impact is expected to be seen with the open the very next day. Now, even though Salesforce price is down by almost 20% on the year currently, the company is still being reported as a strong buy by analysts on Wall Street. Out of 27 analyst ratings, there are 23 buy recommendations and 4 hold recommendations without any sell ones. Now, when it comes to the price targets, the average price target for Salesforce is $333.17, and as we can see currently it's sitting on $208.15. Now this means that there is an upside potential of around about 62%, judging by the average price target of the stock. We can see from the chart itself we've had a pretty healthy bounce back after this sell-off here. We bounced back higher, retesting around about this structure zone right here as well. It's also worth noting that Salesforce has beaten all of its earnings reports for the past 7 consecutive years. So I'm talking both about the earnings per share estimates as well as the revenue estimates. It's topped the expectations for the past 7 consecutive years. And again, even though, past performance is not indicative of the future performance, it's still something worthwhile mentioning with regards to their earnings reports. Now, moving on to Costco now. Let's just pull up their chart briefly. They will be reporting their figures on Thursday. It's going to be after the market close as well. The analysts are fairly bullish on this stock as well, with Wall Street analysts having a strong buy consensus based on the ratings of 18 buys, 4 holds, and no sell ratings. Now, the average price target for Costco is $578. Meanwhile, it's currently sitting at $517.89, which this basically implies roughly a 12% upside potential. Not only that, but given the current inflation data as well, seeing inflation being reported in the highest readings in the past couple of 20 years, consumers could likely flock to low-cost wholesale options for staple goods. If we look at the past performance for the earnings report as well, Costco has beaten the earnings reports for the past 3 consecutive quarters. So even though not as impressive as Salesforce, they're obviously dealing in 2 different industries and sectors. Looking at the chart, we can see that Costco also is going to be retesting these structure highs up here after it retraced slightly lower for the past couple of weeks as well. Now, lastly, the third stock is going to be Baidu. Now, Baidu is going to be reporting its figures on Tuesday. It's going to be before the market open. For Baidu, the general consensus is also a strong buy. However, I would treat it with a grain of salt, given how it only comes based off of 3 different analyst ratings. Again, if we look at Costco itself, it had in total 22 Wall Street Analyst ratings, which again comes in pretty stark contrast compared to the 3 ratings for Baidu, all of which are also a buy rating. Now, the average price target for Baidu is $300, whereas currently sitting at 153.28, which again indicates an upside potential of 68.5%. Baidu also has a pretty healthy track record with its past earnings report, having topped expectations for the past 10 consecutive quarters. If I zoom out a little bit on the weekly time frame, we can see that also the prices have been stuck in this range here. So it'll be interesting to see whether with the earnings report we could see a bounce back to the higher end of the range, or whether it could break down even lower, seeing as how we can see it's been selling off ever since reaching the high here of $353 more or less. So yeah, this is as far as the major stocks for next week. Now we're swiftly going to be moving on to Forex, where all heads are going to be turned towards the conflict between the ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine, and obviously the current invasion. We saw last week how safe haven currencies and assets overall benefited from the news, with the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc seeing their currencies gain significant strength. We can see that this is basically when the reports started coming out of the military operation being officially declared by President Putin, and how the 2 days following that we saw this sell-off, this major sell-off in the euro, Japanese yen, and also on the euro and the Swiss franc as well. So yeah, again, this is gonna be like the main focus with regards to next week and the impact that it could have on the currencies again and the overall markets. We also mentioned in the previous look back how, depending on the news reports that may be coming out this weekend, we can likely see this continued narrative with the safe haven assets seeing some strength throughout next week. Now, with regards to the economic calendar, which again, how you can find it on tixee's website is if you just click on the homepage button here, you can click on the education and research tab, then switch to the economic calendar. And again, you can use all of the filters that you can see right here. You can look at next week, for example, and choose the importance or the impact of the event, depending on which ones you want to focus on. And you can find all of the different events and some key ratings here as well. Something that's also pretty useful is also seeing the little headline here, which basically measures the volatility of the past events when it came to this particular economic report, for example. So you can use it to see, depending on whether you want to actually trade a specific event or not. So yeah, with regards to the economic calendar for next week, we'll be having manufacturing PMI data coming out of the UK and the US, as well as GDP figures coming out of Canada. Now, this is gonna be for Tuesday. Monday is gonna be a roughly quiet day. Then on Wednesday, it's gonna be a Euro focus day with German employment data coming out. On Wednesday as well, we're going to be having some inflation figures coming out of the Eurozone as well. So you can see the headline of the day right here as well. So if we look at Wednesday, you can see the inflation rate coming out of the EU, and we're also going to be having the Bank of Canada interest rate decision. Now, moving on to Thursday, we can see here we're going to be having some employment figures for the Eurozone and Italy specifically, with non-manufacturing PMI data coming out of the US later during the day. And then Friday is obviously going to be probably most important event of the week, which is going to be the non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate coming out of the US. Again, the NFP report is a report that comes out on the first Friday of each month. There might be times that it might be pushed over to the second Friday, but most often than not, it's going to be on the first Friday of the month. Now, again, these events are obviously available from tixee's website and just by using the economic calendar right here. Now, next up, we're going to be moving on to oil and gold. Again, the main focus, of course, is going to be the Ukraine and Russian tensions. We can see here from last week how both the commodities, firstly looking at oil and then looking at gold, we can see how both of them essentially benefited from the tensions, both of them spiking shortly after the first report of the Russian invasion on Tuesday. Therefore, this week we could again see a similar picture. Now, with gold, it managed to briefly break above the $100 mark here. However, we can see it retraced back below it again later during the week, whereas gold, it broke out of a weekly range. If I switch on to the weekly time frame, we can see that gold has been pretty much stuck in a range for the past couple of months. So you can see the lower end here and the higher end here. It did manage to break above it, however, it's still closed down below the high level of that range here. So again, depending on what reports we may be having over the weekend, it could potentially break it with the open on Monday. If not, we could just see it moving back down towards the middle and lower end of the range as well. Let's also not forget, I mean, I know obviously the focus again is going to be the tensions between Russia and Ukraine, but we're also on the economic calendar side of things. We'll be having the oil inventory report, which we released on Wednesday as per usual. And lastly, we'll be looking at some cryptocurrencies and specifically Bitcoin. Just remove. So here you can see the 21 period EMA as well as the RSI down towards the bottom as well. Now, cryptos, they were also significantly pressured by the conflicts between Russia and Ukraine. We saw Bitcoin dropping by as much as 10%, which is this candlestick here. If I just zoom in a little bit, it's this one here. So you can see this lower wick. This is where it dropped by as much as 10% or more than $4,000 before it actually managed to claw back some of the losses towards the end of the week. And we can see it's back in the green as well. However, it doesn't mean that it's a pretty strong move, because in any case, we can see it's more or less gonna remain unchanged towards the end of the week as well. The RSI is also trading below the 50-point mark, now at 42.17, and the price is clearly well below the 21 period EMA. We could see it ranging around about this area here before a potential drop down to these levels. If not, it just keeps on consolidating in this area here. It could just pressure the highs and break up towards the upside, maybe retest the highs all the way up here as well. So it's definitely going to be an interesting couple of weeks as we have the closer price target here. But then again, we also have the major highs, which are not that far off, also sitting up there. So yeah, there you have it. This is as far as the outlook for next week's markets. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Until then, trade safe.